Great. So that's a little bit better. Picture me, maybe it's slightly slower. The video angle shouldn't be bad. So this is my setup for the class. Um, Obviously, it's a Zorn class. Welcome. I'm excited to have you here. So I'm going to go through a little bit of stuff once everyone's kind of in. I want to talk. I have some slides that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to do a little bit of drawing just as a thinking about some formulas and structure stuff just to kind of pave the way. I'm not, it's, the best at it. I haven't done it for a long time, but I definitely will be thinking about it as we paint. So I want to get that out there. And other than that, you can just chime in and talk to me as you feel, as you're ready, All right. Zorn. So, I haven't done a lot of experimenting with this palette, but my whole kind of aesthetic is around color harmony, and I think what Zorn was accomplishing with his paintings was a really sensitive color harmony using a limited palette. So it's a good way to force you to actually not make it limited, but actually push the palette as far as it possibly can go, being that it's white and three primary colors, right? So you have the yellow, red, and black, and we'll get into it obviously, but that's so you can get a lot out of it, and Zorn was a master of it, and he's kind of made it famous. So you can see here, famous self-portrait, where he's holding the palette and showing the colors. So what I went ahead and did was I ordered colors from Doak Art Supplies in New York. I've never used them, but Natural Pigments was sold out and I needed to get it quickly. So I really like it. They're good paints, and basically it's yellow ochre, vermilion, ivory black, and white. So as you see there on his palette, so he's got the white set up to his right, the yellow, vermilion, and black. So I've set up my palette in a similar way. So this is what I have going on right now. I've put the palette off to the left. I wanted to hold it, but I realized that if I hold it, I can't produce. And typically I have it up anyway vertically, but I was practicing with the palette. I was thinking about having a shot above so that you could see kind of how I hold the palette, because I haven't talked about that yet. But obviously, 2 seconds later when I started thinking, I was like, wait, I use my left hand to produce this, so I can't do that. The other thing that I'm kind of excited about was I went ahead and ordered a tripod so I can move around and be able to talk about, like, when I'm wanting to get in really close and explain some kind of broken color or something, I can do that. So it's if I do it softer, it'll be a smoother transition. But so the other tripod I had was kind of it was not easy to do that. I was kind of moving everything around, so whatever. So those are little updates. Back to Zorn. All right. So this palette, if you've ever experienced it or experimented with it, it's really fun. It's fun to push the different elements, and as I said, obviously we'll get into it. So here is an example of what I think. Maybe he used more colors, but I really think it's because he was so good at keeping things relative. I would have to experiment with it more to be able to tell with 100% certainty that this is just vermilion and yellow ochre. But what I think he's doing is, because of the relationships, and you can see throughout the lower right of the picture, and also the two light sources, so the natural light coming in from the right and her warm face lit up from the artificial setup, um, that it's controlled in a way with such mastery that it feels much warmer than it is. I could be wrong. Maybe he used something else, but that's I think if he were to play it just right and kind of glaze over, he could get some really intense oranges with the yellow and the vermilion. So the next one is an example of like on the cooler side where he's using a lot more ivory black, whites, yellows, and just keeping it some of the blue violets, which would be the ivory black and vermilion. So that's just another example of his work. I'm sure you've seen all these, but and if someone can't hear me, you can chime in, or if there's a problem with anything, just let me know. This one's really awesome. This is just, I think a lot of the times what he was doing, because he was such a good draftsman, uh, it was, he used the limited colors just because he didn't participate in the Impressionist movement, so to speak, with a broader arrangement of colors. So it was more about the drawing, more about composition. You can see here with this pretty striking composition of ice skaters, where it's probably a lot of memory involved. He saw it and created it, and so to have a simplified palette, it allows you to just kind of get into the act of painting without thinking maybe on a more complicated. It's closer to drawing, closer to expressing yourself with that medium. Uh, so this is my practice first time using the Zorn palette. Technically, I've done other stuff that's really close. Never used vermilion before. It's honestly it's not much different. I mean, this is very uh, common for my way of thinking, that you could give me any pigment. I don't really. It's not. There's no magic to it. You just look at it, whatever it is, and however intense it is, you just use it according to what the pigment is. So if you give me a bright pink, like magenta, that can do different things than vermilion. So you understand where you can go with it and how you can treat it, and you organize your palette in a way that allows you to create these harmonies and to get into it, to get into the painting. So with that kind of brief introduction, I want to jump into it because time flies when it's only 2 hours. Are there any
Michael,
questions? Yeah.
does the Vermilion have lower tinting strength than the Cat Red Light?
I don't know. I wish I could give you a better answer. Maybe if you Googled it. I'm honestly very new to it. I just got it a couple weeks ago. Never used it before. I've never done any tests. So, I don't use Cat Red either. Typically in my work, I use the magenta and cat orange for red. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so both of them I don't know a lot about, but um, yeah, I don't know. Have you heard it's does it fade? Is that a concern that people have with it, or?
I've used the Vermilion, and it seems to not be as strong. Um, I found as a Cat Red Light,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, like when you mix it up.
I could be I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
you know
No, that's fair. Yeah, I'm sure it's probably slightly less. That's going to be one of the things that as we kind of talk about this and when we're um, practicing mixing and pushing it in my own painting, uh, that there is going to be a limit that you kind of butt up against, that it is what it is. Every painting that you do or every work of art that you create, whether it's in pencil or charcoal or paint, you have a limitation, and so that you're within that bracket anyway. So with a situation like this, it is limited, but the idea is to push it, just to push as far as you possibly can. Maybe that could happen with glazes. Maybe it can happen with just good mixing, where you're like hitting really pure notes as clean as you possibly can to get that breadth. Um, so if you have a really high tinting strength pigment, like like a phthalo blue or something, or viridian, if you don't mix it right, it can still become muddy. So it's those are things to think about. All right. So subjects before we start. I'm pretty excited about the subjects that we're painting. So the woman on the left is named Anne. She's a neighbor here close to the museum. And the woman on the right is my wife. And the reason why I have two, I think towards the end, I'm going to do a study of my wife, Nellie. And just because Zorn's palette, obviously, it's like very kind of Caucasian based, I guess. It just feels like, it's like this, it's made for very light skinned Swedes or something. And so I don't want you to think that it's only for that. So I want to try to push a little bit more of the olive color in my wife's skin. Um, but she's still pretty light skinned. So, it may not be the best example, but it's, it's color theory. You still have your violets and your greens. And so, you can still paint anybody. Essentially, it's not geared towards just Caucasian people, light skinned people, but he used it a lot for that. All right, I have my subject. I'm looking at it up on a monitor above my computer. The one of Anne. I'll bring that into the multicam as we're getting started here. But I want to go back to just this idea first of drawing and understanding that drawing is kind of an expression of your what's in your mind, right? And so, a really easy construct of understanding the skull and the human form of the head is a circle and kind of a mask in front, right? And so that's something that and you can tilt it in whatever perspective you want. If you're looking completely underneath the skull, looking at like the stuff underneath, it'd be more like that. If you're looking down on it, you'd see like just barely any of the mask. So wherever you're positioning this thing and however it's the structure of it, the idea is that you're thinking spatially. Oh shoot, so you're thinking spatially, and the better you are at it, the better you're going to be at drawing, right? And the better at uh, kind of just painting and drawing, etc. The more knowledge you have, the more you can do with it. So as we get into, I don't, again, like I said, I'm not, what? Let me zoom out. Sorry. Uh, you can pipe up if that happens again. So, just really quickly, as this is a replica, obviously, it's a pretty good replica. I got it at the Evolution store in New York when I was living there years ago. But some of the main ideas of like understanding proportions of the head can come in handy because they help you think about where things fall in relation to everything else. So halfway points and uh, you know, uh, just how we see. I'll go back to so the positioning of like trying to figure out um, as because I'm going to be painting, I'm not going to be drawing. But you know, the idea of the block in is to get a really accurate two-dimensional representation of the picture plane. And oftentimes, at least when I was a student, um, there was less emphasis on structure and anatomy. It was more on this idea of these two-dimensional shapes. And it's changed at the Grand Central Academy over the years with different instructors, particularly Colleen, and just how much they've brought in the kind of Russian mentality of structure and anatomy. And so it's completely different now, and it seems like it's a strong focal point of the education. But when I was there, it was more about going back to my drawing. It was more about finding the shapes in just a very kind of abstract, like if this is the cast shadow of the nose, and then you get, like a cast shadow or something of the lip. Gosh, I'm gonna zoom out of this. My apologies. That should be better. So, that positioning of everything was like that was just relating the angles and the distances and measuring. And I don't measure when I draw. I use just this idea of structure and anatomy to guide me. It's not a language that I'm fluent in the sense that like I'm crazy good at it, but as I'm painting, I just want you to know that let's see, was it study 2, study 1? So as I'm doing the self-portrait or whatever, those are things in my mind. It's not just flat shapes. It's okay, what's going on? What's the angle of the brow structure? What's my cheekbone doing, etc. So, are there any questions with that? Again, I didn't go into it like crazy. We can try to talk about it as I'm developing the painting. But that's just really basic kind of drawing stuff that like as you're positioning the head and figuring out. And then, like I'll talk a little bit about. So as I'm blocking it in, so that's kind of anatomy and structure stuff. But then, so as I'm blocking it in, let's say this is my composition. As I'm thinking about distances and movement throughout the piece, right? So you have the mask of her face here. And then you have this like the flow, the pattern of her hair. That stuff is, for me, is as I'm blocking it in with the dark paint, that stuff is more kind of two-dimensional kind of thinking, just this like if you could chop this up into like big sections of space, movement going through, if it's movement that way, movement up this way, those are things as my brush is moving and you watch me paint. At the beginning, it's two-dimensional, kind of blocking in stuff. It's all jumbled together, obviously, but as I'm just getting paint up on the canvas or the panel, it's that kind of just big, broad positioning of things. But then as we start to try to refine it, and make it look like Anne particularly. And then it's more about structure and finding the points and kind of using the structure to guide me. So, so that's just a quick little blip. I wanted to throw that out there. We could talk about more. Not, it's the idea of being live. You can ask me whatever you want. I'll try to answer it, but
Michael, were you gonna send that image?
yeah, I'll send it afterward, so that you have it and you can practice. Uh,
Thank you.
yeah, I'll send it tomorrow with the recording or the link. Um, all right, let's see. So I want to talk just really quick about the palette itself before I start painting. So as we're opening up the palette and thinking about this stuff, I have a gray toned canvas, and the reason is because at the beginning, I want to try to utilize a lot of the red and black to make this rich brown color, right? So it's very kind of simple. The vermilion and the black, I'll be calling it red and black a lot, ivory black. Um, so that warmth basically then will be scumbled over the cool ground. And I don't know if he used a cool ground. I'm not claiming that Zorn used a cool tone, but what I can imagine is that if it's a cooler painting, meaning more blues, more greens, you would probably want to have some kind of warm wash. So maybe he toned it with like a mix of the three of them, and he had like a warm underpainting or something, or maybe he painted a white. I don't know the answer to that, but I know that early on, if you can get the broken color, it's a way of making your uh, picture vibrate more. Whereas if I'm just thinking of solid colors, um, it's going to be more. It's going to be a little bit more boring. So if you get that immediate right from the start, you get that broken color. It allows you to kind of experiment and fluctuate the tones slightly. Also, kind of prepping for maybe some glazing next week and that kind of stuff. So you have this is if I were to mix this out, I can go to uh, what you are going to want to do is you're going to want to create sections of your palette that utilize different areas of the spectrum. So, if that's kind of the red, brown, red neutrals, brown, etc., then I want to try to make the black do something else, which would be to make it go really cold. So I would I would start to think of how the black mixes out with the white and what that does. So that's a real kind of simple understanding of the blues, right? Um, Obviously red, yellow, don't have to talk about that. I mean, this is kind of simple stuff, but then you're going to want to get into areas where you have a mixture of both, and you're thinking more of how this can be treated like a violet. Okay. And so in your mind, you're going to want to think that you have access to the violet spectrum of the, the color wheel. You have the whole color wheel is at access, so that's what you're going to want to open up this limited palette and really make it speak for you, and you want to understand it, the notes that can be accomplished through it. So as you get the violets, you can also push the greens, right? So this is where you would bring in the yellow. So down here, cool colors, violets, greens, and then up here, I will keep it pretty warm and chromatic up towards the light. So that's just kind of this really simple, quick obviously orange, you know, so that's the other secondary. So you get violets, greens, orange, and so that's the palette, and you can get a lot out of it. It's really fascinating. So, but I'm gonna start with brown. So let's jump into it here. Right. So this idea of mixing and having kind of a fluid, uh, you know, rhythm to your workflow, and you want to, being that there's only 4 colors, you should experiment and get in the habit of uh, mixing color pretty rigorously. I'm just kind of measuring out um, the size of the head, thinking about where this stuff will go. So if her head is up there somewhere, again, see it shoots across this way. So already I can kind of sense it's like it feels, you're not going to be able to see it probably in the camera, but it feels very violety because it's the red and the blue. So I want something a little bit warmer. I want it to be closer to brown. So what I'll do is I'll just add a little bit of the yellow in there. And then you're always thinking about the value. You know, if you add too much yellow and red, obviously it's going to go lighter. So that richness of the black, don't be afraid to use the black. You know, it's going to go light really quickly as you mix it out, right? So now down below, I have to add more black. I'm using Flemish white just because those Doak had it, and I haven't read anywhere that Zorn uses Flemish white. I don't know what he used, but I wanted to try it, and so um, I, I I think he would have used lead white, I, but there's obviously different lead whites out there. But Natural Pigments has a Zorn set of, and they're really pretty historically accurate. So I would be willing to bet that they got it right. So if you are really interested in like trying to be legit and do what Zorn did, then get the Natural Pigments set. So I want this like cool gray color just as a note here. And on the background, I'm gonna block in the painting is actually a commission. So I have to make it look like her. I can't like use the excuse that you know, I'm just being artistic. So which I do often. So more than likely it is going to go through phases, but you have to be comfortable with that because I'm comfortable with it. So what usually happens with painting in general in different environments is people are very kind of critical of the process. And because I'm opening up, I'm being vulnerable in the sense that it's live. You have to work with me and watch me struggle through it and watch me. Maybe I'll get it maybe it'll be excellent, maybe it'll be amazing. Um, but the idea is that I'm okay with that, so you should be okay with it. So then, as it develops, by the end of the month, if it still looks like crap, that's not a good thing. One of the things that when I was a student before I went to New York, so like at my very first school, I was really frustrated because I kept saying, I was like, I want to study with someone who can do this. I don't want to study with someone who's just talking to talk. I want them to be able to understand what they're doing. So you can have grace to a certain extent, but um, in the end, I have to be able to paint something. But as it is with the block in, with drawing and painting, is you you're in this kind of fluid state of mind, and you're making calculations based off of you know how things fit together, what's happening, and uh, how good you are about correcting your own work. So the process of painting is really a series of correcting your own mistakes and being able to look at your work critically and arrive at um, mastery, so to speak. So, all right. Okay, let's see. So I'm gonna break in to something here a little bit warmer. Now to um, go back to that idea of structure, as I'm blocking this in, I'm going to be thinking about these bigger sections. So there's the mask of the face, right? It's like this. And then there's the hair. So then the hair comes up here. So you have the top of this skull is, leaning forward. So then I'm thinking of like how the light is up here, and then there's going to be the structure of the eye socket. So when I come down on my scale, then I come in and grab kind of a mid value. Let's see if I can. You don't have to watch me. Is that better? Is that okay? You don't want to look at my face. All right. So, um, so yeah, thinking about like how now, where is the eye socket? How big is her? How big do I want her face? What is this representing? Is this the edge of her face, or is the background? It's so as I'm going in and starting to think about like the the structure of this skull and the way the planes interact. So I'm getting some yellow, right? And this would be like the side of the skull. And that would be the top. And then as it comes So then the background, I feel like the background is going to be through there. Now, is anyone, so is this like, when you look at this, is this like, oh, that's, yeah, that's how I paint? Or is it like, no, that's, I don't mix color like that? Is there anything that's jumping out at you off the bat? You can comment.
Um, it's not a surprise after watching you do interiors and landscapes and
Okay, yeah.
the likes.
Yeah, so you're familiar with my process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, one thing I'll say about what's happening over here is in order to have uh, kind of a rigorous, lively painting, you have to be really comfortable mixing up stuff over here, right? So you have to be, uh, you know, not afraid to build this structure of value. And so you can be careful as you're painting. You know, you don't have to just slap stuff up. But I think in general, as you're kind of blocking this in, keeping the energy of the piece, you want to get comfortable with mixing color. And so this exercise of let me check the chat. Very different starting to paint from the, okay, sorry. I'll try to keep up with the chat. It's more on Zoom. You're welcome to unmute yourself and just I just want to make sure there wasn't a problem. All right. So yeah, it's different. Different probably than a lot of people. A lot of people like to do a drawing. This is a little awkward for me that I have it switched, but I wanted to do it that way because I wanted to be able to zoom in on the colors as we start to kind of like get more and more into this. So hopefully it won't be too difficult. Always setting myself up for failure in life and in art, but that's beside the point. All right.
Your palette and your painting look a lot alike.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, hopefully that's a compliment.
Yeah, it is.
Like they both look really bad. All right. So the hair is coming this way, and the cheekbone. So if you think about again the structure of what we're looking at here, it's like positioning this bad boy in as I'm thinking about like these points. She's actually tipped, so it's going to be all skewed for you anyway. But so her gesture is the perspective I have on as I'm looking down on her. She's turning her head to the left. So as I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking about these, this, the mouth, wherever it is.
Michael, can I ask on the back of what you're saying right now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, perfect. So you were just explaining how you're kind of lining up all these different reference points around the face and the skull and all the structure and everything, kind of tackling it all at once, I guess, as opposed to like locking in maybe the eyes and the nose and then building off from there.
Yeah.
Is that just the way that you've kind of trained yourself to do it, or do you have a particular reason why you don't
Hmm.
start with more detailed areas?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of geared towards my sensibilities as an artist, but the thought behind it is that I've seen people calculate a half and go, and do their measurements and do physical measurements. And that always felt for me like um, it was much easier for me to be critical on myself because I kept checking early on, and it was before it was like I didn't even have a chance to express myself, and I was already wrong. So this allows me the freedom to work up to it and say that I'm gathering information. I'm a detective and I'm searching out the truth, and it's out there somewhere, but I don't know it. I'm growing with the painting. And next week when I sit down, I look at it, or if you're doing it the next day or whatever, you have a fresh eye and you can kind of attack it slightly different, and you can rejockey things, and it's the hope is that whenever you loosen up like this, that you in your mind are still thinking about uh, structural stuff, right? So not to let the structural stuff kind of fall by the wayside, but to keep kind of pressing forward and adding these different moments and elements to the picture with a solid foundation. So that's the hope.
Well,
And
I definitely like watching approaches like this unfold way more than the technical
sure,
drawing,
sure,
slow kind of
yeah,
methodic
yeah.
layout. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun at the beginning till it looks crummy. And then you really have to fix it and make it look good. No, so yeah, it's what I like about it is I look at the subject wherever that is, looking up, looking down. I have two of them, monitor above or my computer screen. So I look at the subject and uh, whatever kind of hits me, that's where I gravitate towards. So as I look at something, let's say a section like this, so I want to try to determine, where the structure of her chin is, and same thing. I have to find the position. I have to think about the color harmony. I was almost going to do this in black and white because it was going to be much more instructive about how much I'm thinking about kind of formulas with my mixtures. But I didn't. I forgot about it, and I also I happen to like the picture, so I'm working from the picture. So, but there is a system of where, especially in an elder person like this, where her skin is really thin, you're gonna get less blood cells on like the frontal bone, and in the cheeks and the meaty fatty parts, you're gonna get a different kind of color happening, and obviously where it's bouncing around and it's warm in the shadows, that kind of stuff. But there is kind of a formula that you can follow, which is as it gets into the halftones and the like, if you look at an example, if you look at the master, right? So it's very clear that he's like choosing these moments of chroma, and also playing the subtle yellows against the really cool blue. So if you go back to um, Anne here, you can see that where in her skin you're gonna gravitate towards black, yellow, white, just for the sake of to push those harmonies, so that then when you're working through here, you are utilizing the full extent of the. This is going to be really difficult for me looking at it because digital, as much as we're advanced with technology, like the picture that you're looking at right now is slightly warmer than what I'm looking at in person, and it's driving me crazy. But whatever, it's all relative for you guys, so it doesn't matter. But it drives me a little bit crazy because the really subtle kind of differences in the mixtures. So I'll exaggerate it a little bit so we can see like blues come out. But like that's going to be less obvious because right now for you guys it looks more like a blue green, and I have slightly more silvery. So keep in mind that whatever videos you watch, whatever images you see on Instagram, it's never the truth. It's never the real experience of if you go to the museum and you see these mixtures in person. Okay, so just I know it's for sure it's on the back of your mind, but sometimes we get so immersed, and that's so thus far the people who've come to the museum privately, they've been really blown away at just like seeing contemporary masterworks in person because they're used to seeing them online, and they just forget that like there's textures and there's all these things that you just looking at it on Instagram you just forget about, and it's easier to kind of think of it as this flat, boring picture. So I'll let you guys look at that and think of it. So as I'm coming through here, this is this goes down into the cool section, right? And I'm thinking about like the cheek and the ear and the shadows underneath the nose here. And then this is background stuff. There's moments of where the just keeping in mind that this background is like a neutral green, and that plays into my mixture here. So this is all. So now if you go back to that's not the image I wanted, but you start to see how you position these things. And so if Zorn was mixing the background out, right, he would have a big section on his palette dedicated to the blue greens and the blue violets because of his black and yellow mixture and the black and red mixture. So in the jacket, it's the black and red, in the background, it's the black and yellow. And then as he gets up into the face, it's a different area of the palette. So if you look at my portrait again, and then you look at the palette of the portrait, so this is my palette for my self-portrait, you can see what I'm doing here. I'm doing it again on our painting today. And you can see, actually, it's interesting, if you go back and forth, you can see the difference in the iPhone shot in natural light. So this is shot in natural light, and you can see maybe some of these different kind of blues and greens compared to what we're looking at today. And so you can see it's just slightly warmer of camera angle, but it is what it is. Yeah. Any questions? Nothing? So it's clear, this stuff is clear in your mind about how like that translates. It's not the exact positioning, but these moments that I'm thinking about as it, you know, these, that would actually probably be a lot cooler. So the yellow and the black. And then it goes up, it's lighter, so you can start to think about that, right? And so when I'm thinking here, I'm, you know, it's like, okay, I have a cool note that is happening, but then inside of there may be some warmth that happens. So the transition of the form as it wraps around that way, you know, you can see there, as it transitions, it goes from cool highlights to kind of yellowy, warm halftones, and then as it wraps and fades away, it loses chroma. But then as the light is bouncing around inside again, the shadow, it warms back up. So then I can see, just kind of glancing, I want to get into, on my palette, I don't have a lot of violet here. So what I'll do is I'll mix up an area of black, white, and kind of pull it into the red and start thinking. So it's green and violet. And so then some of the side planes of her nose. And then it goes back to the warmth of the cast shadow. So the cast shadow is underneath somewhere. And then structure of the front. Somewhere through here, right? Now, this brushstroke here, try to zoom in for you. So, see this kind of just indication. And I just took a red, I don't know, I don't even know what brush it was or how I did it, but that's to try to, you know, indicate that there's this thing happening through here, structure, relationships, right? Of, so that's a hint at, I'm throwing something up to give me a hint at where I'm going to go. So back to particular, looking at it. You'll notice that, oh, sorry if that's annoying. I thought this was two pictures, but this is my actual physical. I'm looking at the screen a lot. You'll notice that I'll blow out the mixture so it gets really quite white, but then I backtrack and I pull it back down really quickly, right? And that's a way of me constantly kind of being on the form. So like if I'm down in the deep shadow or whatever, you know, you mix up these things and you remember where you're at, and then you turn mentally. You kind of follow your positioning as you work it out in your mind, as you're looking at the reference. You're thinking about, you know, you find your position on your mixture, and then you put something down. Okay. And so what I'm going to have to decide relatively quickly is the distance of kind of the nasal bone structure and her nose and the side of her face, which is the zygomatic, right? And her brow, the ridge here, that's a, you know, thinking about these and how they relate. So I have it indicated there. It would be here. And so I just keep kind of plotting these things out in my mind, and how they fit together. And so if it's too pink, come in, grab some yellow, grab some black, get it back down into the green violets, and kind of start to put some stuff down. No, I don't want to go too long without kind of at some point indicating the positioning of where I'm kind of imagining the, remember this guy. So I want to try to find where this section, how everything lines up. So if I'm thinking about structural elements, you know, this is orbital kind of socket here. This is the other one here. Cast shadow of the nose, nasal bone, cartilage of the nose. This is the structure, mandible, the teeth, and how it sinks in with the cheek. Then I have, if I go back, I want to get just the photo. So click back and forth so you guys can see. Going to, give me 1 second, I'm just gonna adjust the chroma on the photo for what you guys are seeing. It feels a bit hot compared to what I'm looking at on my second monitor. So, all right, so there's a subject, right? So organization of brushes can be helpful when you're organizing your palette. I talk about that all the time. You know, as I'm over here in the greens, maybe have a different brush so that if you put down something in the background, you can quickly reference different moments in the picture, right? By having a different brush. Subject, so that angle of her hair and how it relates. I'm going to work on the movement throughout the whole picture. So I want to grab some Gamsol. I'm going to put out a little bit more paint. I saw somebody who was joining from England. I don't want to put her on the spot, uh, but it's very late there. Very honored by you tuning in. Let's see. Well, it's good to have you. Are you have a glass of wine, or am I able to keep you awake? You're not zoning off, and we won't hear you snoring soon, will we? Should have done it like a Friday night or something. It's good to have you. Good to hear your voice. All right, let's see. So grab the hair mixture and just look at it so you guys can see what I'm looking at. Go back to the multicam. So there's movement coming through here, right? That idea of like how this interacts. And so you take black, go dark, green, red, it's black. It's this kind of mixture of how that feeds into the picture. I want put a really dark black here for the sweater. And then as the sweater gets up into light, I can kind of see how that mixture is just constantly it's shifting and changing. So you can use straight black. Let's see. Need to fill out some more black. So I'll just give you a kind of glimpse at, since I can move the camera around, just to kind of close up on. So I just squirted out another big thing of black, right? And some of the way I'm moving around, thinking about. So as I go down, it's these cooler mixtures. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but this is what I'm doing, what I'm thinking about. So that area of my palette is background. It's anything to do with her, her shawl, whatever that is, her black scarf. And that area is dedicated for that. And then as I go up, we obviously talked about these different kinds of skin tones, but you should be thinking about it as a color wheel. So it creates this abstract, mixing space, but then it translates over and it becomes your painting. That's what it's all about. And so as this thing develops, that's my note. I've talked about it many times in the past. As musicians go back and forth on the piano, it's very quick and rapid, and you don't really know what is going on unless you are a musician. But when I watch him, it boggles my mind because I don't know. I can kind of imagine just because I can relate it to painting, but I don't have the note in my mind as I listen to it. I can't place it in my mind exactly what they're hitting. It's too quick. It's too complicated, and there's too many things. But if I just look at a piano, I can just look at a piano and find it interesting. But within this, there's a lot of complexity. It's simple, but there's complexity. So that's what you'll find in the Zorn palette. It's simple, but the more mastery, I guess, kind of that is um, associated with it, the better it gets. Like, so his really simple ability to take a white and a black and a little bit of yellow to make those nice grays, butt it up against the subtle, the just the like on his cheek there where it turns down, and it's like this really subtle transition from the pinks in his cheek into the green yellows. But then as you get into the beard, his mustache, it's like he's got just slightly more yellow and red. But these are such kind of minuscule transitions that it's almost like hard to decipher where he's at. And that's his palette. I can't imagine his palette looking too much different. And I'm not saying that like, you know, in an arrogant way. You know, it would be more subtle. Oh, by the way, there's my recording studio. Anyway, so I can do that now that I have the tripod. Anyway, uh, you know, maybe there would be softer transitions. I don't know exactly what his palette would look like, but I just can't imagine it would be too different. He's going to be mixing up these big swatches of color, and he's going to be doing it in a kind of fast and rapid way of, you know, having his palette work for him. This is a big palette too. You know, my painting is my painting, I believe, is 24 inches tall by 20 inches wide. I could measure it next week. I don't want to get up. I have, you know, small hands, so my hands can't be much more than 8 inches. Something like that. But so this is, you know, divided in half, 10 inches there. So I want to make it life size. Usually, so your hand is about the size of your head. So all right. Let's see. I was mixing up the sweater, so I put out some black, and so maybe that the position of the earring, I could like start to kind of just say, where is that in relationship to get some more, it's this green kind of silver tone. So I'm just going to put something down, a note. Mark, again, talking about that, like gathering information. So this is a silver greenish note versus a pink. So I don't really particularly care about the shape at this point. As it goes up, it's there's like, it's a little bit bluer, and there's a bigger jump in the value, and then you have her earlobe, which is going to be,
Michael, I've got a question about the planes on the face.
yes,
where you have just a couple like notes of the different skin tones here and there, just and none of them are kind of met up yet. They're not joined together. Are you just setting in like literally just like reference points of color or planes, or what kind of is you're thinking there?
yeah. So it's both. It really is. It's so I'm thinking a lot about, like, as I'm identifying something in her. So if I could pull up, let's see if I can pull up, I'll add and in here just so I can see if I can do both. So, you know, you can see in there that, like, as you can imagine the positioning of her head, right? Then, so I'll be thinking, like, let me just point with my as I identify, I'm thinking about the structure of the head, right? And I'm thinking point. The light was coming from the right in my picture. Right now it's coming, so two different things. The light on the skull is coming from the left because my production is with the light here. So that's different than the light on her. The light on her is coming from the right. So it's going to be opposite. So if I illustrate something on the skull, it's not going to jive with. But with that said, when I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, so there's a point, there's a plane here, the forehead, the frontal bone, and how that goes into the nasal bone, and the everyone can correct my anatomy. Is this the glabella? Is this I don't know. I'm asking if anyone knows. It doesn't matter, but the brow structure here, it matters for you. If you're interested in being accurate. But for the point right now, I would be thinking about this plane and this moment of the forehead and how that swings around, and there's this idea of the nasal bone and the cavity, and then there's a cast shadow. So in all of this craziness, I'm going back and forth between, I'm thinking about the anatomy of the head, I'm thinking about the form of a sphere, I'm thinking about cast shadows and how they interact with the light, and flat picture plane ideas. So, you know, I'm using all of those elements in my understanding of, you know, positioning myself for a successful painting. And obviously, the more accurate I am, the better it is. But if it's slightly skewed in one way or another, then I just keep going back to this idea of what is happening on a plane here and how that interacts with this plane, or what is happening with this moment where it tips up, you know, and how that is represented here according to the light source. And so I'll just put down a note of color to represent that space. And I just keep at it. And so every time I put something down, I'm thinking, okay, if I look at the picture, there's this side plane, there's muscles, and there's things that make it what it is. So you can get really complex, or you can get really kind of dumbed down, and you can say that's on the left hand side of a cube or whatever. You know, it's so all those things I just flip through them in my mind, thinking about them little by little. And so, like, if I'm thinking about the brow structure here and the distance from the nose over, that may be more two-dimensional stuff. And I just kind of check it off in my mind that has to exist over there somewhere. And then, you know, as I start to clean up some of this stuff, I would want to be thinking about, like, how all these values interact on her forehead with that space. And then as I carve it down and I come to a different area, or I add information, add bounce light, or I put in an ear or a cast shadow, I'm always thinking, what is it? What am I painting? Is it an ear? Is it a forehead? I find it in, you know, I identify with it. Then I say, okay, if it is the ear, and the ear has a shape and a shadow, then I mix that. So let's say if I want to hit that note, if I want to make a positioning moment, so like I want to make a note of drawing, I want to make a note of the value of the shadow, all that stuff. I just lock it in my mind. What I want to do. Let's see. trying to see. It's hard to get it all. Yeah, it's a little bit better. So once I have that, then I just go nuts over here with my mixing. And I think darker, warmer. Is it red? Do I need a little bit of yellow in it? What is the note that I'm actually looking for? Then once I go back over here, I'm back into my moment of thinking about the anatomy. See, that's a little bit too cold. So I'm going to have to add a little bit more of the yellow. Try it again. And then just keep. So now I'm looking at where the light is hitting it, and it's a little bit more yellow. See, so now that blob of paint here and here there's a relationship that I can see now. And I can carve, now I can create a shape moment. So if I go, so this is like, I'm identifying now the back edge of her jaw and the cast shadow that makes. So it makes kind of a triangular shape right here. So that I see that, I notice it, and then I'm scratching it into the painting so you can see it too. But I identify with it in my mind, and then I have to mix it. And so this one is slightly greener. So I mix up a little bit more black and yellow. And I put that down as a note. And I see how that relates to everything. If I don't want to go too far from there, maybe I could model out some of this stuff. And so that's how I identify with it, think about it structurally, think about it, what color it is, what value it is, and then I put something down. And at this early stage, that's really all I'm doing. It's a series of just attempts, my best attempt. There's a moment, cast shadow here, or the movement of her. Movement across. Hair comes up there. Silvery hair back here. Now maybe that's too much. Maybe she's looking too emaciated, too dead. And so I'll have to go back, carve out a little bit more of her cheek, bring it back. This is not a good mixture. I have to grab my other brushes. So I was using the same brush. So it's good to have separate brushes so you keep your color clean. And clean out grab a clean brush. Make sure you're mixing clean notes. Oops, you guys can see that. Get it back up into the area that I need it to be. Put something down. I want to take some white and black. See if I can get this really blue highlight. More white out. Careful in moments like this up here. I don't know what this was, but you want to be careful not to have too much of your white get contaminated. This is supposed to be like a really cool kind of highlight up here. Maybe I could just take some pure paint, slam it up there. Pure white. Transition. Her hair. These are all moments. I have to add some more yellow. You guys are in my first portrait class ever. I did a portrait class. I did a portrait demonstration for the face conference, but I've never done one video. I've done like free stuff, but I've never.
How did that go with the face conference?
It went well. Thankfully, it sold the demo, and the audience loved it, so it was good. It was.
I remember the write-ups about that event. It seemed like a pretty successful one.
Yeah, he does a good job
Pretty
actually.
cool.
Yeah, he does. As much as I don't love the sales and marketing tactics that Eric uses, it's hard to put together an event like that. So, more power to him to be able to do it. At the beginning of the conference, it's kind of like super motivational. You can do it. Like jump up and down, get yourself excited, get in the moment.
What did you end up painting for that demo?
I painted Nelly. Yes. I was very familiar with the subject. That made it easier. But what I did, I think I mentioned this before, but what I did to lead up to it in practice was I did a series of a bunch of 1 hour paintings, and I knew that if I could do a good 1 hour sketch, that I could do a good 2 hour demonstration talking. So, but it's been a while since I've painted a portrait, so I'm very as usual, very rusty. I'm not. I never feel at home with figure painting, and I don't know why that is, but I accept it at this point.
Do you feel differently? The way you feel with landscape painting or floral painting and portrait? Is it different feelings? Not the same?
It's there's this big psychological kind of block in my head about that when it doesn't look like the sitter, I don't like it. I would, it's one of those things where um, I would rather it look like the sitter the whole time from start to finish. It's just, but I'm okay with it not. I know that that's part of the process. It's just I don't like it. I don't know if that makes sense, but um, it would
Meaning to
be,
say, if your landscape or floral doesn't look exactly like the reference or whatever you painted, you're totally fine with it. But with the portrait, you'd rather be like you would rather it be
well,
more
yeah, put it
exact.
this way, the world, if I paint a petal slightly skewed, no one really ever is going to know the difference. But if I paint a nose slightly skewed, the whole world will know the difference. And so it's just more pressure. That's what makes figure painting more difficult. And that's okay. That's it is what it is. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Like for instance, like Anne is a very, very sweet woman, and we've been very blessed having them as neighbors and very fun to get to know them. And they're one, two, three doors down from the museum, and her family has been in New Salem for 10 generations, which is pretty wild to think about. So the town was founded in 1753 before the United States formed as a country, and so uh like I don't know how far back her family goes, but it's pretty far back. All in this town of like 1,000 people.
Wow.
So anyway, so if I don't make it like just like
Everyone knows her.
Anne, like I feel bad because I want it to be just like Anne, and so it has to be just like Anne. But I comfort myself in the sense that like you hear stories about like uh Leon Bonnat having like 80 sessions with his sitters, and I'm like, that's insane.
And even Whistler, I think,
And
I think
Whistler, and they
even
were
over there
like
in Zorn.
madman, like they like I have no clue what I would do with myself after 80 sessions. I mean, if I didn't make it just like the sitter, I think I would like jump out the window or something.
I'm surprised the center would come back that many times.
Oh
They
my
hate it
gosh,
already. They
yeah.
just say, I don't want it anymore.
Ah, it's madness. So anyway, I used to think it was awesome, but I feel bad for like the artist and the sitter. I just can't imagine 80 sitting.
I think their concept of time before was different than our concept of time now. Maybe they had less to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, we would never get 80 sittings ever.
Yeah, right. That's a lot already. Eight. I mean, just
It's,
eight is already a lot.
yeah, I mean, I don't do anything 80 times. I mean, there's only 365 days in a year. It's like it's crazy. I'd be lucky if I work out like 10 in a year. I wonder how many times I paint in a year. I bet I paint about 200 times in a year.
Probably more.
I don't know.
Looking at your palette, it seems like it would be hard to get the cool. It seems harder to get the cooler than the warmer tones, right? This Zorn with the Zorn. I don't know, like the cool blues, like the cool highlight, the cool light
Yeah.
blues.
That's probably more just because of my mental state. So, like if as an example, so it's never more difficult if you're thinking about it. So like, um, let's say I want to work on the background. Um, I'll work on, let's see if I can zoom out. So there's the whole painting, right? And so if I wanted to mix up bigger sections of the cool color, you can easily start to like make it cooler quicker. You see that? So it's not like um, that it's difficult. I was just concentrating on some of the stuff in the face. Does that make sense? So that's why my palette was becoming overwhelmingly warm. But if I concentrate on a lot more of the cooler stuff, then I can make it cooler much quicker. If that helps. Seeing that a little, it's just it's what you end up focusing on or what you're working on. I'll go to Anne again so you can see the full composition. And so this image is, the background is slightly photoshopped. It was kind of like that, but I took out, like, there was a couch if you in her position, to her left or to our right, if we're looking at it. I took out the couch. And there was a painting behind her. That thing that looks like a painting is actually a door. And I just left it because I liked the abstract kind of quality of it. So, oops, you guys can't see what I'm doing. I don't know what the best angle is for you guys. Right? Gosh, I'm out of black again. Here, it's gonna come in.
You took the picture of her, Michael?
I did.
So you also have a knowledge of how to picture them so that the light reads well as an oil painting.
I mean, I hope a little bit.
Like with a north kind of light.
Yeah,
soft
it was
light.
artificial light actually that I ended up taking the picture with. Same one actually, same one I'm filming with. Just because it was in the evening when she was over, and I asked her if she'd take pictures. So.
This is with the aperture light.
I recommend aperture. I don't know. Let me look really quick so I don't give you the wrong information. It is. You can't see it. I think it is, but it's a smaller, like 12 by 12 inch panel, and it's not one of the like um, really nice ones that are like $1,000. This one is. It still adjusts the Kelvin goes back and forth between.
It's just the bulb. It doesn't have a softener.
It has a sheet in front of it that softens it.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you look up aperture 120D, I think is the like really good light that you could use. It's like I think it's around $700. That's a really nice light.
What is it again? Aperture.
120D is there's like a 300D, 120D.
Okay.
You'll find it, and then like do YouTube reviews, and they'll oftentimes they'll give you like comparison stuff, so you can maybe get something that's just as good but cheaper.
Thank you. So it's like you buy that and you buy a tripod to put it on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can buy a soft box, or you can buy a sheet of fabric, of diffusion fabric, or I mean, honestly, it's like way better to use natural light. But if you don't have it, you can use other stuff.
Yeah, it look natural. Like,
Yeah, it looks nice. It's a soft, cool. It's like 5600 Kelvin, so that's what daylight technically is. How are we doing on time? 8:40, so I can keep going. So you saw the illustration of this cool section, right? I mean, I could make it even cooler if I added a little bit more white, but you get the point. You can go cool really quite quickly. All right.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Go back to. Sorry about my beard. All right, so there's let me zoom in on it really quick so you can kind of see where I'm. There's the angle of the camera, obviously, so it's skewing it somewhat. But so what I need to do is I need to get in here and start addressing certain areas which are connecting areas of the structure. So I just got to keep chiseling it out and trying to get the structure and perspective better. Some of that is shape related. I mean, it's obviously all depending on how you look at it. It's all shape related. Let's see. So what I'm kind of feeling is that the light is falling from the top right. So there's, I'm just going to leave it zoomed in for a second so you can kind of see how I'm thinking. So this area, there's just going to be like, I can carve out certain sections, play around with some of the shapes. As I kind of think about these different moments of the structure. Her eye, someplace in there, and then the light of the eye, someplace in here, and then it's being illuminated here. It goes, if I mix yellow, black, think about how it kind of, this moment.
Michael, I missed earlier. What white are you using?
It's Flemish white.
Is it a lead-based white?
That's a good question. If you go to Robert Doak and read about his Flemish white, you'll know more than me. I just I got it and I like it, and I can't remember why I bought that one versus any other one. I don't think he has like a lead white. Maybe I read something where that is. Sorry for my ignorance, but I'm not too picky about these
That's
things.
okay. How does he spell his last name?
Doak.
Ah,
And oh, you know why I started on the Robert Doak just rabbit hole of when I was researching this class is um, I saw Mark Delacio's post about Vermilion, something he was posting about maybe it was the light fastness of it, or maybe it was different kinds of red. I can't remember, but he referenced Robert Doak, and the fact that Robert Doak had it, I just needed it for the class because I didn't have it, and so that's what led me to that. See, so right now I just it's funny because what you're seeing on that end is just slightly warmer than what my painting is. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Let me go back to so it's kind of a somewhat of a side by side comparison. Again, it's skewed, um, but I'll leave it there for a second so that you can watch me. I can't. I'll go back to this angle. What's that? Give me a second. Um, See, it's hard to get all three of them in the same picture. So right now, see, so this is like a perfect example of where like the this looks like this random kind of old lady. It doesn't look like Anne. She looks much different than Anne. And so um, my job for the next 14 minutes is to try to push it into place. And so that's what I'm going to do. Gosh, it's almost like it's okay. I can't worry about so many things. My mind is going
As
crazy.
you get closer to finishing a portrait, do you tend to leave certain features for the very end, like a mouth or something like that?
Yeah,
And
because
I'm just asking that in general, not because right now you don't have like lips or anything there,
yeah,
not because of that. Just like I'm thinking like long term throughout the progression of a whole painting. Do you,
yeah.
do you,
I mean, like, so the for me, the longer I can get by without putting in like really specific features, I'll try it because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that I need to work on that have to do with the bigger picture than like positioning, the perfect nose, the perfect eyes. So that's why I do that. Maybe
makes
it's
sense?
wrong. Maybe
Yeah.
it's right. I don't know. It's just kind of my. And again, uh, catch me on a different day, and maybe I'll say something different. But at this point, this is how I do it, and that's. Let me see if I can show you guys a really quick. I'm gonna pull the camera over where I'm sitting. Just see if it helps a little bit. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But at least you can see it a little bit more straight on. Okay. Right back to where it was. The violets are really not coming across almost at all on the screen. It seems like the really subtle kind of blue and reds, the pinks here, right in this section. That's doesn't come across very good in video. Oh, you know what's another thing that's making it look crazy is this. I haven't touched this. So many things. Where's my beloved Anne? Come out of the picture. Gets stressed out and it doesn't happen. Her husband's George, and we've hung out with them the most, and they're really very, very sweet. It's funny because I was looking for my raw umber, but what I need to do is mix more yellow ochre, black, and red.
So funny.
So Anne's one neighbor that's happy to have you in the neighborhood, right? At
Oh
the
my
museum.
gosh, yes,
There.
they're thrilled. The other neighbors, not so much.
Too bad.
It's been so, so loud lately. I don't know if you've ever been around like stonework, but like we're doing a huge, they're just finishing it up, a huge brick patio. So you can imagine like sections of like 100 feet of bricks, where you can imagine you have to cut every one of those bricks where it butts up against the straight edge. And so like, you know, just huge saw cutting these bricks, like echoing through all of the quabbin. It's pretty intense. So some of the uh, frustration, I don't blame them, but it's hard because it's a beautiful project and it's, but tough. Everyone, it's been 2 years of construction. It's a very, very quiet place otherwise. Like when the construction's not happening, um, you go outside and you can hear a pin drop. So that I think these people who are they're very introverted and they're very quiet and they like their quiet. And so it's like it's complete 180 where it's like, they don't live in the city because they don't like construction sounds. And they have a big construction site right in their backyards. We're close though. It's close.
Have you done many very small sized portraitures, and have you been able to capture the same freshness in that small scale portrait?
Yeah. I think it's I've done tiny, when I was doing the practice stuff for the face demo, they were probably the heads were probably about that big. They were about half life size, and it's actually um it's actually kind of easier, smaller to get like a you know like a fresh um just because it's so tiny, you don't have to like mix so much paint. Whereas when it's a little bit bigger like this, you have to mix a lot more paint. Trying to think of how maybe I could. I think I'm okay. I mean, we're getting close to the end of the first day, so I'll be able to address some drawing stuff again next time. Let me, okay. So funny. Okay, let me just hold it on this position. Forgive me, you can't see my mixing. I just want you guys to be able to see what kind of how I'm addressing some of these drawing adjustments. It's quite a thing to produce something and paint something and make it look really great and explain it. I'm not making excuses.
Michael, since you're working with
Yes.
just this limited palette right
Uh-huh.
now, have you have any specific color hues come out as being extra difficult to find a mixture for, since you don't have all the colors you're used to?
Not really. I enjoy it a lot, actually. I really like it because it's just you know, I like uh muted paintings anyway. And so it's really kind of simple, and I'm very at home in floating around in all these subtle kind of mixtures of uh you know, I don't know what makes a painting uh more fascinating, if it's like really chromatic or if it's really neutral, but I think it's just the relationships and how you deal with it. So, you know, each one has its own kind of beauty, and but no, I don't feel like I'm like wishing to dip into the magenta or anything. I feel like I have enough of a um you know, spectrum that it's not, at this point, it's not bothering me.
Michael, is the museum open to anyone? And how do you get there?
It's not open.
Oh,
Yeah,
when does it open?
it's a great question.
Okay.
We've blown past a couple of predicted dates, so um, I've stopped predicting anymore. We don't know. Um, we really wanted to open um, in this year, but time is flying so quick that there's it's looking really beautiful. Like they're doing like landscaping outside, and you know, everything is like, there's just one issue, and that's, so there's a stipulation. I won't get into it too much, but it's the museum. There's all eyes are on the museum and what they're doing. So uh, the town is some of the residents are fighting against any private functions. And so on one end, there's people who don't want to have any private events at all let me just go back. So funny. It looks like your face. I don't know what is going on here. Anyway, so no private function. And in order to do private events, so we've applied for private events, and in order to do private events and get the permits for the private events, they are making the Barlettas put in 2 septic systems because of the conservation of the reservoir and the protection of the land behind the museum. So the second septic tank is has been causing the delays, And that's like way back in the backyard. So in order to open the whole thing, that's kind of where we're at, is dealing with that second septic tank. So the museum is beautiful. It's everything is done, and we're just waiting for that. So keep us in your thoughts and prayers. And
All the photos look amazing of the museum.
it's really amazing. Yeah. It's a really gorgeous building. Everything is incredible. The art is incredible. The owners are incredible. We're just waiting on the septic tank. All right. So it's 9:05. This is where we're at. This is how far I got. So this is the block in. So brutal having the picture right next to it. I'm gonna just go back to, I'm gonna take the picture away and let you enjoy a little bit of the brushwork. Forget about my horrible drawing. See, this is why portraits are like so difficult. So funny. So like, okay. So take away her whatever kind of mouth it is. I can't stand that. Come here. Go up here, make that wider. Soften this. The structure of that. Pull that out. So basically, get rid of everything that I just did because it's not right. Better luck next time. All right, I think I'm okay with leaving it like that. See, you get to feel good about yourself and all right. I think that's pretty cool. It just doesn't look like Anne, but we'll get there. This thing. All right. Let me go back to. You guys were great. So let's see. I'm gonna stop recording. Flat. Stop recording.